All right, so let's pick back up with the anatomy and physiology of taste. What do we call taste? Gustation. This is your gustatory sense. It involves chemoreceptors that are stimulated by various chemicals. This is a very complicated process. It involves the olfactory chemoreceptors, thermoreceptors, nociceptors, in addition to the gustatory receptors. How many of you have ever eaten? How many of you have a food that you like, but you don't? Whoops, excuse me, but you don't like it cold? Thermoreceptors. How many of you like chili, but you like 5-alarm chili? Nociceptors. All right. How many of you have ever had a really bad cold, couldn't smell, and just, the food just didn't taste right because you couldn't smell it properly? Olfactory. The process begins with stimulation of specialized receptor cells called taste buds. Most people think that your taste buds are found on your tongue, and they are, but they're also found in other places in your mouth. You have taste buds in your cheek, you have taste buds under your tongue, you have taste buds all inside your mouth. They're not confined to just your tongue. These are small clusters of cells and support cells scattered about the tongue and on other surfaces of the oral cavity. If I would just looked a little further, I would have seen that the slide said that. Each taste bud is associated with a sensory neuron that carries information to the central nervous system. So each individual taste bud is attached to a sensory neuron. The tongue is covered with papillae. That's those little round projections that you see when you look at your tongue. They can be further classified based on the shape. You have your valate or circumvallate papillae, which is the largest of the 4 classes. They're dome-shaped. They contain your tongue will contain about 100 taste buds, hundreds of taste buds. The fungiform papillae are mushroom-shaped, and they contain very few taste buds. The foliate papillae are ridges on the sides of the tongue. These only contain taste buds during childhood. As you move out of adolescence, those taste buds disappear and are replaced by other types of tissues. And then you have the filiform papillae, which are long, thin cylinders scattered across the tongue. They do not have taste buds, but they contain sensory nerve endings which detect temperature and texture. Lots of people do not like certain foods simply because of texture. I love apple pie. I love apple jelly. I love a good, crisp apple. But if I bite into an apple and it has what my mother told me is called a mealy taste or a mealy feel, I can't stand it and I won't eat that apple. Another food I do not like simply because of texture are beans. Pinto beans, Great Northern beans, lima beans. I simply do not like the way they feel in my mouth. My wife gets a big kick out of me trying to eat a bowl of vegetable soup because I can put a spoonful of soup in my mouth and I know if there's a pinto bean or a field pea or a Great Northern bean or any of those. I like green beans, snap beans, and I like the little green, what we called at my house, English peas, the little green sweet peas. But any of those bigger beans and peas, not a fan, simply because of their texture. Taste buds are usually located on the lateral surfaces of the papillae. They contain 3 cell types. First of all, there are the gustatory or taste cells. These are specialized epithelial cells that contain microvilli. The microvilli project into a small opening on the papillae surface called the taste pore. The display receptors that detect these display receptors that have detection for different tastes. They are associated with sensory neurons that carry taste stimuli to the CNS through cranial nerve 7, cranial nerve 9, and cranial nerve 10. Also contain basal cells, which are again stem cells that continuously differentiate into new gustatory cells. They have a short lifespan, unlike the olfactory cells that had a lifespan of, I believe it was 30 to 60 days. Basal cells, or excuse me, taste cells only have a lifespan of 10 to 14 days. And then, of course, you have the support cells which surround and support the gustatory cells. These, again, play no role in taste sensation, just like the support cells play no role in olfaction. But again, there's the tongue, there's the tonsils, there's the epiglottis, but there's the back of your tongue. Those are the valate papillae. There's the foliate papillae, again, only there during childhood. Fungiform papillae. Sensory neurons showing the gustatory cells that go out to the microvilli and the taste pore. The cells are then detected. Longitudinal section of a valate papillae. So if you take one of those big ones up there and cut it, there's all of those are the taste buds. The sense of taste involves signal transductions of chemicals in food into electrical signals that can be sent to the central nervous system. There are several taste sensations, detections. Again, depending on the textbooks you're looking at, generally we say 5 classes of chemicals. Some textbooks leave one of these out for some reason. I don't know why. But I'll point out which one is usually left out in a minute. But sweets, simple sugars, glucose and fructose, lead paint, and ethylene glycol. What is ethylene glycol? That's antifreeze. One of the reasons lead paint was taken off the market and is no longer sold for residential uses. Lead paint is still made. It is used in a lot of industrial applications. But as far as residential paint, you and I can't buy lead paint anymore. And the reason is because of the lead having a sweet taste. Children would often eat, if the paint was chipping, they would eat the paint chips. Kids would sit next to windowsills in old homes and put their mouth on the windowsill and discover that it tasted sweet. So they would do that and they would get lead poisoning. Ethylene glycol, again, I do not use ethylene glycol. There are other types of antifreeze that you can get for your car. I use an alcohol-based, I think it's alcohol-based. But anyway, it is not ethylene glycol, and I do that because I've always had animals. I've always had dogs and cats. And just in case I have a leak under a car, I don't want one of my dogs or cats to get ethylene glycol poisoning. Animals that drink, or humans that drink ethylene glycol, it is a very painful way to die. The ethylene glycol forms crystals in their liver and kidneys, and it's very, very painful. Sour tastes produced by hydrogen peroxide or hydrogen ions, things such as citric acid in lemon juice. If you're tasting something sour, more than likely you are tasting an acid of some sort. Salty things elicit by the presence of metal ions such as sodium and potassium. So when you taste something and it's salty, what you're actually tasting is a metal ion. Bitter, produced by nitrogen-containing compounds. These are found in rancid and poisonous substances. Again, one of the things those guys that do the survival shows say you should do, if you don't know whether a particular plant is edible, is you take a small piece of it and just touch it to your tongue. And if it is bitter, it has a bitter taste, or it burns or stings, don't eat that. Find something else to eat. The one that is usually left out of a lot of or it's been left out of a lot of textbooks historically. I think it's usually included now, but it's the taste sensation called umami. This is associated with meats and broths. What you're actually tasting is glutamate or some other amino acid. So when you sit down and you take a bite of that nice juicy steak, and you're not, well, it's not sweet, but it's not salty, it's certainly not bitter. What is it? That taste sensation is umami. Most taste preferences are determined by foods eating while growing up. Biological factors can also play a role. Um, most of us, the foods we eat in adulthood, those preferences are made in childhood. Some people will change. Somebody who grew up on a cattle farm eating beef every day, 2 or 3 times a day, can certainly become a vegetarian later in life. Someone who grew up as a vegetarian could absolutely start eating pork chops later in life. But most people's food preferences are set in childhood. When asked to taste a compound, um, PROP, 6N propylthiouracil. I don't know whether we used to taste this. It was called PCP paper, and we used to do it in a biology lab. And some people would taste it and not taste anything, and some people would taste it was very bitter. But when doing this, 25% of the population tastes nothing, just basically like you're sticking a piece of paper in your mouth. 50% say that it is mildly bitter. 25% of people are referred to as super tasters. They have a heightened sensitivity, and it is thought to come from a genetic variation and above average number of fungiform papillae. These people find this taste intolerable. I had a student many years ago that when we were doing this in biology class, biology lab, she put the piece of paper on her tongue, literally started gagging and spitting, and left class and was gone for about 15 minutes trying to rinse the taste of the paper off of her tongue. Having more taste buds might be an advantage, since super tasters often avoid sugary foods such as frosted cake or intensely flavored drinks like coffee or beer. Therefore, they don't have the associated health problems that may come with those. One study has found that women who are super tasters are thinner than non-super tasters. Again, this is all anecdotal evidence, and may also avoid strong tasting fruits and vegetables, grapefruits and Brussels sprouts, which may increase the risk of colon cancer and other health problems. So, being a super taster could be an advantage. Right here, maybe you're thinner, but you're going to avoid these, and these foods are shown to decrease your risk of colon cancer and health problems. So by avoiding them, then you may increase your risk. So are you a super taster? Is it an advantage? Is it a disadvantage? The physiology of gustation. The sense of taste is detected when chemical stimuli binds to the receptors on the microvilli of a gustatory cell. The taste receptors are classified by the substances they detect, with only one type of receptor associated with an individual gustatory cell. In other words, a gustatory cell can only detect one specific thing. Activation of taste receptors happens when the substance first dissolves in the saliva before it can reach the taste bud, where it can be detected as gustatory stimuli. As with smell, if an object or an item will not dissolve, then you cannot taste it. There we go. Changes in the ion movements depolarize the cell's plasma membrane. Again, that gradient core principle, which we've been talking about all semester. Depolarization of the membrane opens the voltage-gated calcium ion channels. Calcium ions then enter the cell. The calcium ions trigger the release of neurotransmitters, which produce an action potential in the axon of the sensory neuron. Again, here is the gustatory cell with microvilli. There's the synapse. There's the action potential being generated. There's the neurotransmitters being released. So whatever has to come in here has to be sodium or hydrogen. Depolarization occurs, which allows the calcium to come in, allows for release of the neurotransmitter, and your action potential is generated. The gustatory pathway, taste stimuli travel to various regions of the brain for processing. The axons of the facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus nerves carry taste stimuli from the tongue into the central nervous system. They terminate in what is called a solitary nucleus in the medulla. They synapse with central sensory neurons. Those axons from the solitary nucleus synapse with neurons in the thalamus. From the thalamus, then the signal is sent to the gustatory cortex, the primary gustatory cortex found in the parietal lobe. Taste signals then travel to either the inferior region of the frontal lobe for integration, or for integration with, visual and olfactory information, or to the limbic system, which provides emotional reactions to taste. Again, we have those integration with visual and olfaction. Everybody's taking pictures of their food nowadays and putting it on Facebook or whatever Facebook is called nowadays. Some foods elicit emotional responses. Again, you eat apple pie and you think of your grandmother or something like that. Again, there's the signals coming into the taste buds, facial nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, all those signals coming back into the solitary nucleus and the medulla oblongata. The signal then goes to the thalamus and to the primary gustatory cortex. All right, I'm going to stop there and then we'll pick up with the anatomy of the eye on a new day. Have a great rest of your day.